Hello. The Divine Code reading for October 6th, pages 241 and 242. We are beginning the chapter, Practices that are Forbidden as Customs of Idol Worshippers. Topic number 1. Just as Gentiles are forbidden to practice idol worship itself, so too they are forbidden to go into the customary ways of those who serve idols. These are ways and schemes in which idol worshippers conduct themselves that are connected to and strengthen their beliefs. So there's activities that are associated with idol worship. Not necessarily the idol worship itself, but there are activities that one would associate with it. Genuflecting, things of that nature. And a person would be forbidden from doing those activities as well. The following are customary roles among those who worship idols: a magician, a diviner, a soothsayer, a witch, a charmer, a medium, a wizard, or a necromancer. All these, even when they do not actually include idol worship in their practices, are branches of idolatrous services, and they cause to bring a person to serve idols. So these kinds of activities that are associated with idol worship, a person should not do these things because they might lead a person towards idolatry. Now, the idol worshippers might do it not because it led them to idol worship. The idolaters just do these things. But a person that starts doing those things will be led because it's sort of enhanced by the idolatry. You know, they can use it without the idolatry, but then the idolatry sort of increases the strength, and therefore, by doing these things, the desire to increase the strength of it through the actual idol worship can draw a person towards idolatry. About this, it is said, it's in Deuteronomy chapter 18, 9 through 12. There shall not be found among you one who passes a son or daughter through fire. That's referring to the service of Moloch, as explained above in the chapter on Moloch, chapter 4. A diviner, a deceitful illusionist, a soothsayer, a sorcerer, that's a witch, an incantationist, one who inquires of Ov and Yidoni, or a necromancer. For these are abominations to God. Anyone who does these, and then the verse continues. So it's listing these items. It's referring to them as an abomination. Now, specifically speaking to Jews at this point, it's speaking to Israel, but it's saying don't do these things because it's an abomination. Therefore, we know it's an abomination. In Tractate Sanhedrin 56b, Rabbi Shimon, that's the area of where we learn most of the basics of the Noahide Code is learned out in that section of Sanhedrin. Rabbi Shimon says that Gentiles are warned about witchcraft, while Rabbi Yosef says that the whole verse, "Thou shalt not be found among you," that's the whole list, is a prohibition on Gentiles as well. For they have no punishment unless they are warned in the Torah. This is also the opinion of Rabbi Natan and Sifrei, Numbers 31:8. Rabbi Natan says that they executed Bilam in court, as as it says, and Bilam, the son of Beor, the sorcerer, they killed by the sword, meaning that Bilam was executed by the court for his liability as a sorcerer. So in that section, it speaks of the war against Midian. After the whole issue of the worship of Baal Peor and the Moabites and also the Midianites enticing the Jewish people, they went to war against Midian, and in that process they executed Bilam by a sword. And because they mention it specifically that they killed him by a sword, that's understood to mean that it was done in a court. It wasn't done in the battlefield. It was done as part of a court, and that's why it's stated in that unique manner. Otherwise, it wouldn't be necessary to state it. They can just simply say that Bilam died on the battlefield. However, Rambam left out their opinions in the Laws of Kings and ruled like the sages in Sanhedrin 56b, that Gentiles are only commanded and warned about the 7 Noahide commandments and not other things. As Kesneth Mishnah explains in Hilkot Avot Kohen 11:4, and Dereshot HaRabban, published by Mossad Harav Kook, as page 150, it is further explained that Gentiles are only warned about Moloch and not the rest of the activities in the verse. This is also the ruling of Miri on Sanhedrin 56 and Kermot HaKadoshim chapter 96. So the term warned means that it would be an executable offense in the court. And the majority of sages are saying that most of these items, except for Moloch, the practices of Moloch is so unique to Moloch that it's assumed that a person that does these things, the practices of Moloch is a dedicating one's child to the idol, which assumes that the person is actually involved in idol worship. Otherwise, he wouldn't be dedicating the child to the idol. The other practices are 1 degree separated from the idol. And therefore, it's possible a person would be doing these things without, even though it's associated with the idolatry, it's possible a person would be doing these things without being part of the idol, connected with the idol. Therefore, it's not an executable offense, but it would still be something they shouldn't do. But they're just trying to parse out what exactly is the concern, what exactly is the halakhic issue involved. One can say, however, that Gentiles are forbidden in all these practices that are offshoots of idolatry, but they were not warned about them, since warning is a technical term of the 7 Noahide commandments, which refers to those explicit prohibitions for which a Gentile is liable for capital sin. But if something is forbidden because it is an offshoot of the general prohibition on all items associated with idol worship, it does not make one liable for a capital sin, although it nevertheless is forbidden. It can be seen from Rambam, Laws of the Worship of Stars and Idols, 11:16, who writes about these practices. All of these things are only falsehood and lies, with the original idolaters deceived the Gentile nations, so the people would follow them in their idol worship. He also writes in his Pirush HaMishnah Avodah Zarah 4:7 that all these things are sources of idol worship and its offshoots, meaning that they bring one to idol worship. This is the reason why Rambam included all these practices in his laws of the worship of stars and idols, since they bring one to serve idols. Therefore, it is clear that Gentiles should be prevented from practicing them. So it's these items, except for the part about Moloch, but the other items, the witchcraft, the necromancy, and all that, are not connected directly to the idol worship. Rather, there's things that entice a person into idol worship. Therefore, we're told to prevent people from doing it. It's sort of like a fence to not allow these things, because a person who does these things it'll be enticing them. It'll be putting a stumbling block in front of the blind for the person. He says he's not doing the idol worship right then and there, but the idol can sort of supercharge these things in such a way that the allurement, once the person wants to do something with witchcraft, and he's just doing some weird nature thing, and he realizes that by including idol worship with what he's doing, it'll expand what he's doing dramatically. It's almost inevitable that he's going to want to include the idol worship. He won't see anything wrong with it, because he's just trying to make whatever he's doing work better. And that once it's accepted that the activity and the desired results, once it's established that those things are proper, the idol worship just makes logical sense to do the next step. And therefore, the entire practice would be forbidden. All these practices are forbidden. It is a great sin to engage in any of them, and the court is obligated to uproot these practices from among the people. Nevertheless, since Gentiles are not warned about them explicitly, none of them are in the category of capital sins. Topic number 2. The ancient rituals of Ov and Yedoni are practices of idol worshippers. These are the wording of Rambam in the Laws of the Worship of Stars and Idols, chapter 6, and Sefer HaMitzvot, negative commandment 9. That these are types of idol worship. Since the simple meaning of this is that they actually involve idol worship. Why is a Gentile not liable for capital sin if he practices one of these? So these are these two things, the Ov and Yedoni, they do involve idol worship, but it's the idol worship. The idols are part of the practice. So the question here is, why would this not be considered a complete offense of idolatry? It's rather still considered part of these things that are prohibited because they lead a person to idolatry. That's the question. Since the simple meaning is that they actually involve idol worship, why is a Gentile not liable for a capital sin if he practices one of these? This is because these types of service are done for private interest and not as an acceptance of the idol as a deity. In this respect, they are similar to service performed out of love or fear, mentioned in the earlier topic, chapter 3, topic 27, and the prohibition comes only from the elements of witchcraft which are associated with the practice. These elements are forbidden to Gentiles as ways of idol worshippers, but not as acts of actual idol worship. The idol worship requires that the person accepts the idol as a deity. Now, these things, they actually exist in nature. Much of what idol worship involves is taking a natural power, something that's part of the earthly system, the created system, and seeing an area of power, like a rainstorm. A rainstorm has a certain power to it, and thinking it has independent power as a deity to control human life, which it doesn't actually have. It doesn't have any independence, and therefore the person that accepts a rainstorm as a deity, that would be the idol worship. But if he just simply sees the rainstorm as having power, and the idol worshippers who worship the rainstorm see power, and they know how to manipulate the power of the rainstorm, however it is the idol worshippers would do that. If a person did the same manipulation of the rainstorm, that doesn't mean the person's performing idol worship. It means he's performing an action that is associated with the idolatry of storm worship, storm system worship, and that would be not, if he doesn't accept it as a deity, he's still doing it. It's prohibited to do it because it's a form of the ritual, but it's not a direct violation of idolatry. It's a degree removed. Speaking of the Ov and Yidoni, these include rituals of idol worship and sorcery that are forbidden to Gentiles, even though they are rituals of idol worship. They do not make a Gentile liable for a capital sin, because he does not do them in order to serve the demon or spirit of the dead that he calls upon, meaning he does not do them with acceptance of their beings as deities. Instead, he performs the rituals as sorcery and for his own benefit alone. So he's doing this not for the purpose of serving whatever it is that he's doing. He's not serving the idol. He's using the idol in order to control these powers. And it's a nuanced difference, because he's not serving it, he's not accepting it as a deity, he's just using it as a tool in his sorcery. Therefore, even though it's forbidden, it would not be considered a full capital sin. What is the ritual of the Ov? One stands and offers a certain incense and holds the stem of a myrtle in his hand and waves it. He speaks words of magic that are known to those who practice this ritual until he, that's the petitioner, hears a sound as if someone speaking to him, and the voice replies to him what they are asking. The voice seems to emanate from under the earth in an extremely low tone, and it is not recognizable to the ear, but only perceived in the thought. Similar to this ritual is one who takes the skull of a dead person and offers incense to it, and then divines with it until he hears a very low voice coming from his armpit, and the voice replies to him. Both of these constitute the ritual of the Ov. What is the ritual of the Yidoni? One who places a bone of a certain bird called Yidoni, Yudone in the Hebrew, in his mouth, offers incense and performs other actions until he falls into a type of faint and trance. The bone then seems to speak from his mouth about events that will happen in the future. This is discussed in Rambam, The Laws of the Worship of Stars and Idols, chapter 6. Just as it is forbidden to practice the rituals of Ov and Yudoni, it is also forbidden to ask such individuals to provide advice through practice of these rituals. And if one transgresses and does so, it is forbidden to act according to the advice that is received. And that's discussed in the Rambam, The Laws of the Worship of Stars and Idols, chapter 11. So in these cases, these are specific rituals. Now there's other activities that are discussed in this chapter on prohibited practices that are forbidden as customs of idol worshipers. There's other activities such as sorcery and that are more broader, but these are very specific ones that were mentioned in the Bible, and therefore they're discussed separately in this topic. And then other more broader categories will be discussed further in this chapter. And what something that's unique here is that the advice that is normally, many times, not normally, but many times, when something that is forbidden is done, the benefits can still be derived from it. This case, when the person receives advice, due to the nature of the advice, the nature of the advice being given, even listening to the advice would be participating in this ritual, and therefore the advice itself has to be just foregone. It has to be ripped up and not acted upon. It's not permitted to benefit from the advice given through these techniques, because that would also be participating in the techniques. Whereas, let's say the fruit of a grafted tree, a person is permitted to benefit from the fruit of a grafted tree, and items that are mixed together, oftentimes they're allowed. In this case, the advice is completely forbidden to follow. Thank you.